So we use ChatGPT sort of like a extended Google search. The thing is that there's a variability in the answer that a GPT would give, or any such generative AI tools. And this is not something that enterprises actually like a lot. They want very consistent answers, which is aligned with their, I would say, legal aspects, and also with the way they want to promote. So they are not used to this kind of a variability.
Hi Ananth, welcome to the
Hi.
next episode of Simulated Reality. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Kashyap?
Fantastic. Great to have you. You're building something amazing. DaveAI is doing amazing things. And on that line, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions and have a fun conversation. There are so many products that are coming out today with regards to Gen AI, and specifically within the sales and marketing unit, right?
Right.
My question to you is, why do you think there are so many competitors in the sales and marketing Gen AI space? What is it about the use cases that is enticing entrepreneurs to kind of take up that role?
Yeah. So see, so Gen AI actually, the concept of Gen AI has been around for maybe around 20 years or so. So when I was doing my PhD in Sweden, this was like like an upcoming branch, which was very much in the research area and things like that. And a lot of us felt that there's a lot of potential for it, but of course it was very limited, and most of the answers that could be generated would be about would be very limited, and there would be a lot of hallucinations, as the term has come in now. But in those days, we used to call it as a randomness or some sort of a high temperature for the for these words. Now what has happened, of course, is that one of the biggest things that has happened is the revolution for the in terms of the the GPUs, correct? And for that, because of that, we have been able to process very large amounts of data and train these models. But having said all of that, right, it is still a tool. And what Gen AI actually does is to sort of say that, okay, here is a set of inputs, and you are trying to predict what could be the set of outputs according to this set of inputs based on all the data that it has received until, right? That's the things. There are some few details, etc., like context and attention and things like that, which have been added more recently, and have had the impact, of course. But primarily, that's what it is. It's a tool. Now, when you talk about a tool, you will use the tool when you feel that this tool is useful, of course, but also that it is of cost effective, right? So if there is a tool which is not yet cost effective, most of the cost centers will not use that until it is established that it actually reduces the cost. Whereas sales and marketing is actually a profit center, which means that whatever tools they use may not be only seen from the point of view of its optimization or cost. How much more sales they can do, how much better marketing they can, how many more people they can reach out. So they are often in the industry, in B2B space, especially for businesses, they are the ones who adopt new tools quickly. They were the first ones to adopt, automation. They were the first ones to adopt internet, for that matter, right? So internet, until 1999, more or less, internet was solely used for making websites about your company, which is the sales and marketing. Right? So that's pretty much there. So I think it's just a matter of, it's just the thing about the way that the adaptability of this particular tool, and why and how businesses, and still early, we don't yet know its limits, we don't yet know all the factors. I mean, it is still not yet, I would say, cost effective. So that's the reason why sales and marketing are the first people to sort of adopt it. And that's the reason why there are a lot of startups in this space.
Yeah, I think one of the conversations that is a major point around Gen AI, especially, is the ability to quantify the ROI. And I think with regards to sales and marketing, it is more direct than any other fields, and some of the use cases are enabling that. Any technology that comes through, probably sales and marketing are the first ones to adopt, and companies are willing to invest in it because that will show the direct impact. So
Exactly.
that summarizes and sets the context for our conversation really well, right? Now, with regards to the tools, right? Now, there are tools people want to invest, right? Board members are telling their CEOs, CDOs to invest in Gen AI. They are interested. I want to talk with you to understand how they can find the right fit, right?
Mhm.
One of the things is there are just so many things that are happening. And even if you just Google, right, probably Gen AI solutions in this. What, according to you, if let's say I am the CDO of a Fortune 500 company, hypothetically, where should I first start looking, and how should I start looking for the right fit? Because Google search probably doesn't help me, or probably gives me the companies which have the right SEO strategies, right? So where do I start?
So see, the thing is this. So say, as we know, it's a comparatively new tool, which of course we know is very effective, and also there's a lot of potential, right? This is something that is completely established, and that's why you're asking me this question, because that's what CDOs have in their mind, that it is very effective. Now there should be, I would say, like two types of strategies. What we call as a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy, right? So because of the fact of what GenAI, this is a tool which can only be effectively used by extremely large companies, right? Why is because of the cost of computation that is required to wield these tools, and secondly, the cost of creating anything new from this, right? And it's extremely expensive to create something which is comparable to, let's say, what ChatGPT does today, right? It's at least a few $billion to be invested into building something similar to that, something similar to that. So in the short term, there is no way that people can look at it as doing it in-house, right? This is almost kind of pipe. You will not be able to do this in the short term. But in the short term, and because of the, I would say, like a monopoly of a certain set of vendors, I would say there's 4 to 5 people who really are at the top of the game here in this case, right, where it can be used at a business kind of at that sort of a scale. What most of these businesses have to do is they have to align with one or two of these type of solutions and figure out people who can sort of customize this solution for their problem, the way that they are doing it. So that should be the short term, but also should work on a long term strategy to sort of create and own some of these things. So to start with, they should also explore other open source. There are a lot of open source models and tools that are available here, and they should also invest in having a workforce internally who understand these tools, who understand what the limitations of these tools are, what the advantages of these tools are, and then engage with internal or external researchers who can help them to use these tools specifically for their needs. So there should be a short term and a long term strategy.
Fantastic. Now that we have established, how to kind of identify the right vendor, I think it also depends, most importantly, on the use cases they want to develop, right? These are CDOs, these are technology professionals who have been in the industry for a while. So they have a fair bit of understanding around where are their cost centers and which has a good immediate impact. Considering that, what are some of the use cases? Probably you can talk a little bit about DaveAI here as well. What are some of the use cases that you are solving? And in the market, what are some of the use cases which are showing already impact? I'm talking to several service providers. At this point, they're telling us that around 10% of their solutions are going into production. Rest of them are just pilots or some kind of on the shelf products. So what is your observation on this? And if someone doesn't know where to start in terms of identifying the right use cases with high impact, how would you guide them?
Right. So let me again, like you said, let me first talk about the things that we have been working on, and maybe then I can sort of extend it into something else that I've seen, and I'm seeing some trends for this one. So we are working with GenAI in 3 or 4 directions. One of them is to improve communication between the user and the business entity, right? So we had already been working with the avatar-based solution as well as a chatbot-based solutions, right? Which was pre-Gen AI. This was more of the older NLP-based solutions, right? Where you identify the intent and then get them into a flow or something like that, right? That was where we were, and some of our customers already were using our solutions there. They were free text, in the sense that you could type in whatever you want, it would identify the intent. All that was there, but it wasn't just like a click kind of a thing. But at the same time, it had its own limitations and so on, obviously. Now we were of course working on our own Gen AI models at this point, when of course OpenAI basically just blew the market open with this. So this is the context of where we were. And going from there, once, of course, we had more tools at hand, we had more, libraries, open source libraries that came up, and and so we sort of adapted some of these libraries with our own research, and we have some of our own, systems there. But I would very easily say that that any such system that we are building is not at the same level or at the same level of accuracy as what you would get from a chat GPT, right? Including other open source tools like the larger open source tools like Llama 2 or these other sources. They're nowhere close to what chat GPT is today. So what we started doing is and of course there's also the other aspect that the use of chat GPT is still not yet clear for many people. So it can do something great, but a lot of people use it for ad hoc stuff, right? Like they don't necessarily use it as in a specific use case. They say, okay, let's see what chat. So we use ChatGPT sort of like a extended Google search, right? So we previously what we did is we sort of did a Google search, went through many articles, tried to understand the problem, and then maybe find a solution, right? But now what people do first is they go to a ChatGPT, and then they when they go to a chat GPT and they try to get a summary of the answer that they are looking for, right? This is what people are doing more or less. And obviously it's great at doing this, right? Because it's able to like take a vast amount of sources, condense it into something of a few paragraphs, and then give you a very succinct answer to that. Now, this is obviously something that people feel has a great potential. But when it comes to industries, they don't want the variability that comes with this, right? They don't want that if you ask the same question to ChatGPT, because there's a slight change in context, etc., you may not get the same answer exactly. That obviously the GPT is a fantastic tool, and the thing is that there's a variability in the answer that a GPT would give, or any such generative AI tools give. And this is not something that enterprises actually like a lot, right? They want very consistent answers, which is aligned with their, I would say, legal aspects, and also with the way they want to promote. So they're not used to this kind of a variability. And so what we have done is we have done various pilots with the enterprises that we have worked with. These are largely Indian companies, so maybe there is a bias here for me, because I have not worked a lot with American companies. I've worked mostly. Our customers are in Europe and Middle East and in India, mostly India, but around 20-30% in the other geographies. For all of them together, we see that consistency is something that they desire. So even if there is a small change in this, they don't want a very large change, because sometimes it could be the answers that GPT produces for exactly the same question could be quite different, right? It could be quite varied types of answers. Secondly, they are very, very keen on the accuracy of the answer, which is actually a problem again with using GenAI, right? They're not very good to do. They're not very accepting of inaccuracies, and which I think is for good reason, right? When it is for personal use, you might be okay with an inaccurate answer. So you probably, for example, if you are looking for GPT to create code for you, right? If the code doesn't work, you can try a few more times and then get the code working, right? That's typically the way that as a person I would interact with GPT, because I say that, okay, it's not enough, or it's not accurate. I would probe more, find out a way to get a more accurate answer. But that's not okay for business use. So what we have been doing of late in the last I would say 6 months to 8 to 6 months was to find a way to make these answers more accurate, and find a way to make it more succinct in a way, but more precise in a way, without a lot of variation. This is what we have been actually focused on doing. Out of that, as you said, we have around 30% of these pilots have gone into production. For us, it's a slightly higher rate because of the fact that we had we already had these are our customers which already were using some of these tools, right? And they just were, we just made an advancement in these tools with the help of GPT, etc. That's one of the things. And so, but then again, in the new pilots that we did, you're right, that's somewhere around 10%. A lot of them are pilots. They're at a very small scale, right? They're not at a large scale like how we used to have, because there are chatbots and avatars together. We have, we used to We used to actually connect with more than a million customers a year, right? In the past, this was a pure NLP based system. More than that, I would say it would probably be around 2 lakhs. It's 200,000 per month, so it's probably more than a million on an average, right? But that's not the case here, because if we did 200 million interactions with people, that would be, they would be spending millions of dollars on this. So they don't want it to be at scale because of the cost. That's one of the biggest reasons why pilots are not getting into production. So the ones that went into production were the ones that were laid on top of our NLP system, which means that 80 to 90% of the queries were solved by existing technology, that is pre-Gen AI technology, if you could say that. And then only around 5 to 10%, and there were another ones which were using parts of the Gen AI, and then around 5 to 10% of them were actually using the Gen AI in reality.
So what I'm hearing is the key is to essentially be able to use the model in a way that that is very efficient for their customer base for that use case, right? And there the kind of modifications and this thing come in, right? So in different sorts of integration, certain sorts of this thing, the base model might be the same, but the ability to kind of adapt to their environment and answer the right questions, give the right answers to the right questions. How does a company find out whether a data science vendor working in sales and marketing know or find out whether they are able to provide these kind of integrations or modifications to fit their capabilities? What should they look for? What are some of the characteristics of that organization, that vendor, that they should look for?
Right. See, almost all the vendors, right, they are built on top of some APIs now, right? When you talk about GenAI, so whether we use for text-based systems or use a mix of text and images, for example, right? That's now, these use cases are coming more and more into the fore. We have also done some use cases where there's a text and image kind of a thing. We've also done use cases where we are doing like this avatar-based, which is avatars which are based on the GenAI directly, right? So these are the three different use cases that we have already done. Now, so I can again limit myself to this for now, and then maybe get into some other variations across the board for this. How would a company understand this, how to engage with a vendor, is that they should be able to get a long-term strategy from the vendor. That's the important thing. So while they're, like I said, you cannot have only a short-term strategy. That will not help you. It might give you small wins, but it will not really help you in the long term, right? So you need to look for vendors who have a longer-term perspective in this game. That's one of the things that I would try to understand.
How do you identify that they are able to? What does a long-term strategy look like? What are the
characteristics? I'll elaborate. So this long-term strategy requires the vendors to have a bit of the capabilities which are not just based on the existing APIs that are on OpenAI or Azure OpenAI or AWS or Bard, etc., right? So people who are just built on top of an API as the core are not the right kind of vendors. So they should look for vendors who have some bit of the technology, at least some bit of the technology that was pre-existing in some way or developed on their own, right? At least a part of it. And I would say for sure that most of the vendors who are working in this may have this technology already, right? They may have this kind of technology. But if they don't have this technology, which many vendors are also having, definitely those are not the long-term strategies. These are people who would basically be able to implement a certain API for a limited use case. Right? Now, so this is one of the ways to do it. So they should have some technology or some kind of a basis or some sort of a technology themselves, which they are using or they are bootstrapping with the help of the other OpenAI libraries or APIs, etc. Right? Not OpenAI, not just OpenAI, but any other APIs or library. This is one of the things. The second thing is also about having a layer which is an enterprise level layer. Now, every enterprise has a very complex ecosystem of software as of today. Right? So there is the CRM, there is the ERP, and this is just to name a few. But then there is the document management. There would be a lot of bunch of things. These things, and they are often not from a single entity, right? So it's not like Microsoft provides all the solutions or SAP provides all. It's not it's not like that, right? There's no single system which actually provides all the solutions for the entire enterprise. Very rarely it's a complete one thing.
Complete full stack.
Sorry, yeah, full stack. They don't do that. So it's important that any of these point solutions that they want to integrate using Gen AI, right, should be integrable with all these other things.
It should be agnostic.
Yeah, that's the next point. So it should be integrable. That is the first thing, right? So there should be a layer which is independent, as you said, or agnostic of Microsoft Azure or AWS or Google, and that's of cloud, which I think they're still there, but it's also of which APIs they are eventually going to use. Are they going to use an open source Llama type of tool, or are they going to use Bard, or are they going to use ChatGPT, or are they going to use Midjourney, or whatever it is, right? So that independent layer, which is not very tightly integrated with any of the large vendors, is also one of the things that they need to have a look at, right? So it should not be so dependent on the large vendor, the offering of these vendors, that in the future it's impossible for them to move on to other areas of their business without having to change their backbone, right? This is also another important criteria. So there should not be so over dependence on a single API or a cloud or some sort of a service which prevents them from extending it through their organization. So which means that their short-term things there's another blocker for them to move from short-term to long-term. Right? This is another thing. The third thing that I would look at, as when I see as a vendor, when I try to get a vendor, is to partner, to be able to partner with these large service providers, right? For example, let's say that, I mean, as of today, of course, we all know Microsoft is the biggest player in the game, right? In terms of the large and service providers for Gen AI. They're one of the best and they're most successful as of today in this field. But using their services also has a lot of, I would say, a lot of glitches and a lot of roadblocks, right? In a way, especially if you're not already onboarded with them and things like that, right? So if you want to sort of create a new relationship with Microsoft in this particular domain, there could be a lot of roadblocks, etc. So it's important to find vendors who are able to work with large partners, but not completely dependent on them. So it's a very thin line there, right? So you need, so you while I would still say that it's more important to have somebody independent and not too dependent, but it should not be in a way that they are not able to leverage what is available and in the right way that is good for the organization, right? It's important that we have a mix of these three, and it's a subtle balance that the organization needs to look for.
Yeah, I think that's well summarized. So a long-term strategy that is not dependent on only current APIs, ability to integrate across different platforms and technology stacks, but at the same time, third point, not heavy reliance on just one technology, right? So all in all. Now, considering some of these factors, right, and there's a trick question for you. Have you ever asked a client, because of your fundamental capabilities on, being able to bank on these three parameters and then build them a solution, have you ever said no to a client, and why is that? Because that will help us understand why some of the vendors are not able to achieve certain use cases or something not.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest reasons why we say no to any of the companies that we work with is their understanding of timelines. They as I said, their short term is so short term sometimes that it's impossible, kind of a thing, and it doesn't make sense. It's not that it's not possible, but it does not make sense to go that way, right? So many of the enterprises, they want to show something, most often to their management, that we are doing something in Gen AI. This is the only goal that they have. They don't really have a strategy for what is it that they want to do there. It's more like saying, okay, I've done something with Gen AI and I want to show this to my top management, right?
Yeah.
These are the kind of use cases where we usually very easily say, okay, we can do something very small, but we are not going to engage with you on this in this line of thinking. Let's think about a longer term strategy. Let's think of how this would work in the future, etc. Let's have a plan. Let's have a roadmap. Then we can sort of engage with you. This is what we are usually saying. Sometimes we are successful. Sometimes it's a pressure of sales, right? We need to also close deals. We need to make new deals and things like that. So there is a bit of both there. So we do a lot of push and pull there. So that's obviously there. And for people who just want to do it for the sake of a buzzword. I think these are the deals which we try to stay away from.
But
We do
this is from the client perspective. What about your limitations? Or not just limitations, just the ability to do work on different projects successfully, right?
Oh, that's because I think see, we have a clear what is the word for it? We have a clear define boundary to what we do, right? We work on communication and conversations, and then we work on generative parts. So these are the two generation of images and 3D, right? This is the two places that we work on. So if it is not aligned with our thing, and also within sales and marketing, okay, that's another thing. So we don't go for use cases, even for use cases which are allied, which is sort of like a call center kind of use cases, right? So we have bots, but we don't do bots. We never did bots for service, for somebody raising complaints, etc. For example, right? So we still have those same boundaries, right? We still work within those similar boundaries. So I think that part, I think we since our we are a bit mature in that sense. We are not because we have been in this field for 5 or 6 years. So we know that we shouldn't take up certain types of deals and we should restrict ourselves. So I think that part is already there. Then we need to, of course, say that we need. So I mean, this is sort of a advice that I would give to any other earlier stage founders. Then. I would say startups, then that this definition of what you want to do, or which are the verticals that you want to tackle, and what are the problems that you want to solve. Even if there is a potential for you to solve other problems, you should define it quite early. Right? And the way you define it is by having conversations with customers, and really try to find out which are the customers who are willing to invest in it. Right? There will be many customers who would say that you do this for me, but it's only about middle management presenting to their board, right? If it's about that, it's, I think, difficult to identify, but after some time you'll get an idea about that, right? You'll get some idea about that. But so initially too, you need to not fall into the trap of trying to do everything, but try to limit yourself to certain things. But now I think for us that problem doesn't exist, because we are already old enough, I would say, to avoid that kind of a trap, which to say, okay, I can do this too, I can do that too, kind of thing. We have our boundaries and we stick to that. Sure.
Yeah, I think I can imagine. Like as soon as you start, saying no to any revenue might be a bit difficult, but once you have that maturity and the ability to choose your clients wisely so that you successfully scale those projects and use them to kind of even further expand, is something which you can afford to do, right? Like, and that's a good place to be in. My final question to you, Ananth, is you defined some characteristics which CDOs or data leaders from consumer industries need to identify with vendors. But this is the world of AI. It's going to evolve. These characteristics will evolve again in 2-3 years. What do you envision? I'm not asking you to make a prediction, but just a trend that might follow in terms of them having to make or keeping an eye out for when regards to identifying the right vendor for sales and marketing in Gen AI.
So see, sales and marketing. See, I would say that there are 3 or 4 categories where Gen AI can have an impact in sales and marketing. So one of them is, of course, automatons for sales and marketing, which means that you do a large part of the conversation about selling your product, etc., before you actually talk to a human being. So this is actually going to go even larger and larger. This will have a huge impact on the number of people that people reach out to, number of sales conversations they have, etc. Then there is also the marketing aspect, which is that how quickly can you generate content for your marketing campaigns, right? So how quickly can you take help of Gen AI to leverage these marketing campaigns and to make them personalized. When you say personalized, it means that every person actually sees something that is relevant to them, right? Along with the product, that is, right? Along with their product. So for example, now the personalization, when you talk about personalization in the traditional sense, it's about identifying the customer or the specific product that the person was interested in. At best, maybe something like a recommendation of products that they might be interested in. Something that's what is the level of personalization now. But it could be that these products are presented in a way that is most suited to this person, to this person's likes and dislikes, right? So, for example, I would say that one of the things that we were working with, this is again very, very at a conceptual level. It's not yet there. We're working with one of our good customers, and they have this long-term perspective with us, right? So obviously some of our best work is happening with this customer. And so what they're looking at is being able to send content, video, pictures, etc., on WhatsApp or on other kinds of direct lines of communication, where every individual is actually able to look at something that's customized for them, because they have a lot of data for these customers, and they know a lot of information about these customers, right? Where they are, what language they speak, what did they buy previously, etc. So based on all of this, we are trying to predict what is the kind of content which they would be able to engage better with. Would it be a humanized content? Would it be like the content related to some sort of a futuristic thing which is imaginative? Could it be cartoonish? What kind of a thing like that? And then generate content for them. So the marketing becomes extremely personalized to a level that we have not seen before, right? So personalization of the marketing is also one of the fields which I think that company should look forward to. There is the third field, which is basically to reduce, which is sort of like a replacement of their marketing teams, right? Or agencies. A lot of companies, they spend a lot of money on agencies to execute their brochures, to create the brochures, to do other things like that, right? Or create a marketing campaign or things like that. They rely on that. A lot of businesses are trying to see how they can reduce the spend on agencies, right? So this is more of a thing for the agencies themselves, because a lot of their billing used to be based on their manpower and how much, how many people they can bring to the project, so that this happens in a successfully, whatever their marketing or campaign happens successfully. But that's so so they're trying to see if Gen AI can be used to reduce that. So simple things like creating product descriptions, then managing product descriptions, creating managing or getting new ideas for what the campaign should look like, right? So now even their own executives, right? The company's own executives who are in the marketing team, they would be able to generate tens of ideas within few minutes or a few hours, which they would need to which agencies would have previously needed to taken months to brainstorm and get ideas. It's not that agencies are not using this technique themselves. They're also, of course, using Gen AI now. The spend of these businesses on agencies is the plan that they're planning to reduce the spend on these agencies. That is something that both agencies as well as companies should be on a lookout, because obviously if there is a way for them to spend less on that, on creating marketing campaign at the same time, that is it. The fourth thing that I feel that could be effective is, I think you touched upon it before, is a way to evaluate the success of your campaign, right? Identify whether whatever you have done, whatever marketing you have done, or whatever strategy you have used, is that effective or not. And for this, the interpretation of the data or even collection of the data is much better with the modern automation and and AI capabilities. So to interpret the data and come back with a sort of a answer, whether it has been successful or not, or there could have been a better way to do it, which means that you would essentially be able to do A/B testing or a very large number of A and Bs, right? A very large things within a very quick time. So you're not restricted now to say that, okay, I have to create a campaign. I have to decide now whether this is going to work or that is going to work, and only do one of them, right? You can do both because of the cost of creation of this campaign has reduced, right? And then you can easily get a comparison of which is the better strategy within some framework. So understanding and analyzing your return of investment, or or in terms of strategy, to say that, okay, I had a good ROI, but could it have been better? This answer is always is something that's often hidden for sales and marketing, which I think is going to start slowly changing, because more and more of these campaigns are going to be, as I said, largely personalized. But even it can be, strategies themselves can be. You could do it with multiple strategies, and then decide on your final strategy based on a smaller test run, at a very cheap cost, right? Which you could do that, of course, but it was still very expensive to do it. So people would say, okay, I'll choose this one and then see what happens, right? This is what would happen. You can do that much cheaper now with Gen AI. These are the four things I feel are there. Of course, I'm not touching on many things which I've heard about. I have quite a lot to cover, but I think these are the four places where I feel.
No, I think it's a good summary. I think that leaves us hanging over a thought, and more to chew on. And Thank you so much, Ananth, for making the time. I think it's a very interesting conversation, very useful one as well, because I think instructions are coming from the boards and the very top management to invest in Gen AI, but where and how is a very crucial question to ask for these CDOs, or they want answers from. So I'm sure that this will be helpful for our audience. Thank you again for making the time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kashyap. It was great talking to you.